Joining me is our regular Tuesday commentator, Matt Canavan, the National Senator and former Resources Minister. Matt, great to see you. What does it tell you that emissions under the Albanese government have essentially not fallen and even went up last year?
Well, what it tells me, Andrew, is this is all a marketing slogan, not anything that's real. We're lectured at by this government that we must get to net zero emissions, but really what this is simply a form of words to try and get the Labor Party elected, not something they really believe in. Because, as you say, emissions under this government have barely changed in 3 years. If it was such an urgent issue for us, why haven't they taken more action? And I think it's also very important to take a wider look here over the 20-year period now. We judge our emission cuts from 2005 levels. And so, yes, you'll often hear, Andrew, that we've cut our emissions by 28%. That's way more than almost any other country in the world. However, almost all of those emission cuts, those emission reductions, have occurred from taking land, mostly farmland, and converting it to forest, or what we would say in the Nationals Party, to unmanaged scrub. You just get weeds and pests, basically, kick the cattle off, kick the farmers off, and you call it saving the planet. So roughly speaking, Andrew, we've reduced our emissions by around 160 million tonnes on an annual basis since 2005. 150 of that 160 is thanks to this conversion process, this reforestation process, this taking away productive land from an economic use and putting some trees on it or letting the scrub grow and saying, hey, what good boys are we, aren't we doing well? Now, we've lost 7.2 million hectares of land through this process, productive land. That has cost farming communities, it's cost jobs, it's cost economic activity. And meanwhile, all those people in the cities, like Mr. Cannon Brooks, they're doing nothing to reduce their emissions. We've had almost no change in the emissions that's come from people in the cities, flying around the world, driving their cars, consuming whatever they like from Temu, shipped in from China. None of that's changed. All of the impact of our emissions reduction so far, almost all of it, has come in rural Australia.
Oh, you seem to describe a process where growing wheat is bad, but growing weeds is good. The UN Climate Conference in Brazil right now, 496 Australians officially listed in the delegation. You might have heard me list some of the very strange people there. I should go back and give some more names. This seems something very different to a conference that I would expect was about climate science and economics and how to deal with it. There seems to me a very different agenda here.
Well, Andrew, one of the surprising things to me since the Nationals Party and now the Liberal Party have said, look, we're not going to pursue this net zero goal, it's not achievable. The government itself is not even doing it. It's just costing Australians an arm and a leg. One of the most surprising things has been the incredibly shrill response from a very small group of people who seem to be getting a lot out of the net zero agenda. It's hard to describe why they would be so shrill about just the National Liberal Party. They seem to hate us, so if they think this is such a bad political idea, they should be rubbing their hands with glee. But I think the real worry for them is that the grift might be over, that a whole lot of people here are making money out of the net zero agenda. It's not helping the average Australian. It's not lowering power prices. It's costing thousands of manufacturing jobs. We've lost over 7,000 manufacturing jobs since we signed up to net zero. But there is a small number of rich, self-entitled people who seem to have taken upon themselves to lecture the rest of us about how terrible we are, that are also making a lot of money from this. And good luck to the 496 people who've had a nice holiday over in Brazil. Keep in mind they're benefiting from a road that's been carved out of the Amazonian jungle to get them to that conference. I'm just glad, Andrew, I've never been to a COP conference. I hope I never do go to one, but if they do bring it to Adelaide, I might just have to turn up because, God, that will be such a massive opportunity for me to pursue the madness of net zero and why we shouldn't be spending billions of dollars on a COP conference, let alone everything else
Matt,
we're doing.
When you raise that prospect of you going to a conference or something like that, look, I've got to say, here's something that bothers me. You know that a lot of people now have a religious belief in global warming, net zero. It's like, one of those new apocalyptic faiths, repent for the end of the world is nigh. You can only argue against it with people, liberal or nationals, who are going to be passionate, extremely well informed on the subject, consistent for years in arguing against net zero and the global warming scare, of whom there are very, very few in the coalition now who've had that consistent record. You do. And I'm wondering whether when you are now going to end your exile on the backbench and actually take a lead role, maybe as a shadow minister, and argue against it, because I don't think anyone else in the coalition has the knowledge or the courage or the ability to do so.
Andrew, I very much appreciate the compliments. The major reason I would not have joined the shadow ministry has been removed. That reason was I couldn't sign up to supporting net zero emissions. And so while the coalition had that policy position, I just could not do it. I was going to continue to argue against this madness. And I'm glad now that myself and a few others have eventually convinced now 70 members of parliament. That's the number of Liberal and Nationals in the parliament. 70 of us now are against that. So that's been the major achievement. Now, look, honestly, Andrew, I'm just so glad that that's been done. And I've been saying, I think...
Yeah, but are you now ready to serve?
Well, yes, Andrew, the short answer is yes, but it's up to other people. And look, having banged this drum for so long, I realise that some people are pretty frustrated with me too, Andrew, and I can accept that. I understand that. Cassandras tend not to get too many bouquets at the end of the day, and it's a price I'm willing to pay. But look, if asked to serve, of course I would, Andrew, because I do want to see now the main goal here now is to convince the Australian people of this madness, to get our country back on track, to maintain our manufacturing sector, to keep our costs down so we can get the standard of living up for Australians. That is my number one focus now, and if others, my colleagues, consider that I could do that in a front bench role, of course I would. But as I say, I'm just glad that they have now taken this up. We're just at base camp though. We've got Mount Everest to climb to kill off this backwards agenda that's holding our country down.
Matt Canavan, thank you so much for your time.